Okay, so we're going to start recording part 3 of my live session, which is going to review the week 3 assessment. So for the assessment, we're going to use hex colors to convey emotions. You're going to be practicing using these colors correctly. A deep dive into that the last couple weeks in the color theory class. And then what you'll do is for the assessment, you're going to download the provided file. There's a folder with that file in the assessment prompt. And what you're going to do is you're going to find the following. You'll find the Photoshop file, and then you'll find a Word document, both within that folder in the prompt. You'll download that. The Photoshop file has 3 artboards meant for a website design. And then the Word document lists an assortment of hex code colors, okay? And then so you're gonna apply after that. You're gonna apply color to each layout in a way that's accessible, follows the correct contrast ratios, and there's a ratio required, which I'll review in a moment with you. Okay, contrast ratios are one space versus how much you're going to use and apply in another space. Okay, and so it's going to convey, you're going to convey the named emotional feel at the top of each artboard. And then label. You're going to label each color with the name of the hex code. So sounds a little, don't let it intimidate you. It's a lot of fun. You're going to dive into hex colors, which is something that will be great for you to know moving forward as a designer. So hex colors, use this website, the contrast checker, to help you choose color combinations. The link is also, I'm going to send a link in the announcements. So if I go into, I'll share my desktop with you. The contrast checker. Okay, so this might help you quite a bit. Just say I choose I guess I gotta just do a really bright blue here and then say okay. And then this one, okay, there's the ratio. And then you can share, you can reset. It gives you the actual hex breakdown, okay? So that's really helpful. You might find that to be something that you need for this assignment. Here are a bunch of hex colors that are very helpful as well. And then so the assignment demo, I'm going to show you, this was brought up as calming, energizing, and corporate. They're all the same. You would choose, like, for example, this is similar to how you might set up a website. So if I bounce over into Photoshop, here is how it's applied. Just gonna move the chat over a little. Okay, so for example, there are 3 artboards that are provided in the assessment folder under the prompt. And so you would design them the way that you want to design them as it would be a website, sort of a faux mock website. Of course, I don't need my timeline anymore, so I can close that timeline. I'm not doing animation. but I'm doing sort of a faux website. And of course, if I look at all of my layers, here we go. Here are different applications for the energizing web page. Here are different applications for the calming web page. And they're grouped into layer groups. It looks like I'm missing the font here. That's okay though. So you see with this, you apply the hex code, right? This is an example of how the assessment is completed. You'll want the right hex code. You'll want to apply the right colors. And then of course, this is just Greek copy. So if we bounce over into the Safari color theory class, if we go to week 3 assessment, if you go to download this file, there's one Photoshop file with 3 artboards. It's meant for website design. You're not designing the actual website. So don't let that intimidate you. The contrast ratio is going to be for color is 4.5 times brighter or darker than another color it is near to. Okay, so when you look at what you're provided with, here are your color choices. I'm going to cancel out of there real quick. When you look at what you're provided with, you've got a background, and then you've got this like sort of navigation on the left side, which, you know, hypothetically that would be a website navigation, a nav bar. I'd click on red, green, blue, or whatever. So what you're going to provide for me is, if you look at the assignment, the example, you want something to be 4 or 5 times 1. In this case, this looks pretty accurate. This orange and this yellow, that works well together. Energizing, it's an energizing. You're going to want to choose, when you go back to that template that we were provided with, see, it's here. It wants you to choose corporate colors, and you want them to be within that ratio. So if I back in to Canvas, 4.5 times brighter or darker than another color that is near to. Though you can figure out color or correct color ratios using math, there are also a variety of sites that check color values for you and offer suggestions as to correct contrast pairings. So I just brought up that that one hex color check. I think I closed out of the hex color check. Back to PowerPoint. There it is, the contrast checker. So this is very helpful as you move into, we don't need that video anymore. So again, you can kind of check this ratio right here. I've got nothing, 0, 0, 0, 0, 0. The ratio is 2.1. So if I go in here and I want to choose this color, say okay. Will it let me even? It's not letting me right now. Say okay. There we go. Go here. Green and red. The ratio is 2.21, so that is not different enough. And I'm going to suspect it's because they're both sort of midtones. So if you want to change that, maybe you make it a lot darker and say, okay, now it's 8.29. So if you're going to use these 2 hex colors, of course, you want them to first represent whether it's energizing or corporate. Remember all the things you researched, but then also you're going to showcase, is it red, is it green, is it blue, is it yellow, is it black, is it white? And if they're on top of each other, the examples, they have to be very contrasted. So that's first, that's very, very important. So you're gonna show what the hex colors are over here. The blue hex color, dark blue and black, what's used, and then what they represent, and then is there contrast or is there not contrast? Okay, so this is what's going to be used. You're given this template, and then you just go ahead and go in and change those colors. And then they are in layer groups. So the template, for example, I want to make sure you'll see the template has the layer groups also. So all you have to do is go in and highlight and change colors from there. But you're being assessed on what kind of hex colors that you choose to make sure that there's enough contrast and that they represent this color category: corporate, energizing, and calming. And then I want to see those like, for example, if I go into calming, I want to see what color hex codes you have over on the left. So if you're doing green, and then you're going to want to green and yellow or something like that. You're going to want to like add the hex codes for green and yellow for here and make sure that those ratios are at least contrasted enough. Visually, you can kind of tell if they're contrasted. If they're vibrating, like two midtones vibrating, then that doesn't have any contrast. So it's usually like a brighter color and somewhat of a totally opposite or different shade or tint of another color. So just be in that mindset as you build these. Okay, so that's the assessment. Do I have questions on that at all? Okay, so yeah, feel free to ask questions. Are you able to talk, or do you want to ask on the chat, Raymond? Great question. Yes, that is what I see here. That looks like what's done. So they use dark and a dark blue. And for this first one, that is under calming. Blue is calming, so that was a great choice. That might be one that you choose as well for this, under this calming section, because there's limited colors that are calming. So yes, it looks like if you go into calming, that would be under the grouped. You would then, here, let me see. Here we go, yeah. So I grab my type tool. Originally, it had all the colors on the left side. You would just tell me you're using blue 1. This is the hex color blue that you're using. The second blue color that we see, this is the hex color that you're seeing. A third blue color that we might see, which I'm still struggling to see what that third blue color is. Maybe they're using it somewhere. That's the hex color. And then black, and that's the hex color, because black, obviously, we're using that for the typography, so certainly include that on the left nav, quote unquote, nav bar. All right, and so then for this one too, yeah, and you can delete those other words. You do not have to keep orange, yellow, all the other words. And so for energizing, we know that yellow and orange are energizing, and you can see how contrasted these are. Let's see. I'm not saying these are all correct either. I'm just saying these show you examples. So in this one, it looks like, oh, I'm still under calming. So you would go under energizing. You would go under your type tool. You've got your white, the black color, the orange, and yellow, and there's nothing else. So that makes more sense than this one over here. This one seems to be off to me. I don't see a dark blue, and obviously there is not a lot of contrast between this nav side and the background here. So this one could be an incorrect example. I'm gonna focus my attention on the energizing one. That's very correct, and it looks like we've got all the colors that we're using in this side. So don't let this one confuse us here. All right, and I want you to place those colors right in. So you're showing, you're showing us what those hex colors are. That should be, oops, there. So we've got gray, blue, black. We're using a gray, we're using a blue, we're using a black. And you can change the color of the text to match some of this so that you don't have any black. That's fine with me. So you're showing that those 3 separate moods and tones, and you're changing the color of the nav bar and or text and background to support contrast. And you're just using hex color to reinforce that you're understanding what a hex color is and you're using the appropriate hex color. Do we delete? Oh yeah, so please delete those colors that are not, in the example here. There we go. So for example, this has a ton of different, I'm gonna go into calming, use my type. So if I'm just gonna use green and red, they're complementary colors. I have red and I have green. I'm selecting that black. I would like to use a red color that's a hex color. So I'm gonna go into the contrast checker and I want a red color. Not too pink here. And I'm gonna make it pretty intense. Say okay. So the ratio here, I already had one entered in. It's 3.76. The ratio that I want is 4.5. So that is not enough. So I've got a red here and I want to do maybe a green. Let's do something a little bit more exciting. We'll just do that. We'll see what that says. Oh, that's not very, I kind of suspected it wouldn't be high ratio. Say okay. Still not high enough. Dark green. Yeah, still not high enough. You just have to kind of play around here. It's getting there. That red is really bright, but it's also needs, it's almost there. There we go. So that's my red color. I go back to my text and I go back to my red green. deselect. There's my hex color for the red. Shift. Oops. Can barely see my keys. And then for the green, so my green hex color. All right. And then of course, I'm gonna do this again. I've got that. I'm gonna go and I'm going to add, I want that to be the hex color. So there we go. And I'm going to fill that, edit. Oh, it's not letting me right now. I need to fill it, image. I think I need to rasterize my smart, rasterize my shape. There we go. Now I can fill it. Edit, fill. I'm gonna fill it with the foreground color. You can barely tell. So maybe that was a dark blue that they used in that. You can barely tell. And I could use, I could make this the red color if I wanted. Copy that. Say okay. Now that's my fill. Automatically filled for me. I could just keep it like this if I wanted to, or I could bring in red and dark green elsewhere. The red's hard to contrast because it's such like a vibrant mid-tone, and so the ratio is a little bit crazy for that one. So that's a red and a green, believe it or not. I would probably end up then going in, whoops. I would probably end up going in, it doesn't like me because I don't have Myriad Pro here. All right, I'll be fine with the font substitution. Mad at me, Photoshop. Okay, so select all, and then we're gonna go in and I'm gonna make this a red too. It's already set to that hex color. Say okay. I'm just trying to bring it in, and I can bring it in over white. You don't, not every single background needs to be a color. So I'm pretty much done with this. The red and the green hex colors. Now I don't believe that there was a requirement for more than 2 colors. Let me just double check that so I'm not telling you the wrong thing. No, it just says label each color. So the requirement is not more than, there's no minimum color. I definitely would do more than 1. So you've got a red and a green. For energizing. I'm not quite sure red and green is calming. That would be the opposite feel. So you'd probably do red and green for energizing. I was just doing an example. And so energizing, you might do the red and green, and then corporate, that of course, people talked about it being brown for corporate. They also talked about it being purple or a maroon base. So that's gonna be up to you. I just wanna make sure that maybe I'll do one more just to kind of reinforce here. So I'm gonna go up to corporate, and as we know, I'm gonna rasterize layer, rasterize shape, just to get that smart object out of there so that I can fill it with a color. Now, as we know, when we went back into the PowerPoint, the first PowerPoint that I had opened earlier, and some corporate colors. I'd like to engage you all. Can you remember what the corporate colors were? Blue is also a corporate color in the West. We could use blue. Any other examples of corporate colors? All right, well, we'll go with blue, start off. So I'm under the corporate layer group. I'm gonna do a command click. Blue is one of them, and since that's your favorite color, we'll go with that, Raymond. Okay, so we've got this, wait, I gotta go back here to my Safari. No, I don't want Launchpad. That contrast checker. So I'm gonna choose a blue. This time I'm gonna choose like a really light blue because I want to get that contrast a little easier. It's kind of a cyan. Say okay. Copy that. And I'll just do shades of blue this time. So I'm going to fill. I'm gonna click on my color picker, enter in that hex. I did a copy, now I'm doing a paste. I'm gonna say okay. So that's in my fill. I'm gonna do two, since this is selected and active, I'm gonna do an edit fill with foreground color. Okay. And now we know already that I'm using blue. If I knew offhand, which we can also, I think purple's one of them too, but I'm gonna probably keep it just blue for this demo as a corporate color. But here's what we'll do for the text for the colors themselves. I'm losing real estate here. Go over here. I'm gonna deselect. I have to find that other hex color ratio. This is already at a 9 with that other color, but we'll do another blue here. That's a pretty strong. That's already a 6. See how it's so much easier finding contrast when you do go with a lighter color off the bat. We'll do this, see if that works. It's getting a little closer. We'll just do that one then. Copy that blue color over to my I forget. Paste. Okay. All right, so this time I'm going to do a background. That's on layer 1. That's underneath all my other layers. And I'm going to do a fill. Edit. Fill. I'm going to fill it with the foreground color. There we go. And clearly, the black is not very contrasted with that. So I could go with white, and that would be fine. Let's first go back over here and copy our first light color blue into, I'm just gonna do this. There we go. And then we're gonna do and you can adjust these a little bit to your liking. Not much different, but if you need to get that squeezed in, you can do that. You might want them all to be capital letters, of course. You might pull up your that would be my character panel, not my paragraph panel. And then you might bump that down in size to fit. I might bump all of these down in size just to fit a little bit more. Let's do, right? And then, of course, that hex color for the dark blue. Copy that color. Oops. There we go. And then we can use white too. And we can use black if you want to keep black. I'm gonna just do white. Hex color for white is I believe they had it on the instructor example. It's FFF. Easier that way. So white is FFF. Okay, so those are the colors I'm using. And of course, I'm gonna also adjust the same thing. Thanks, Raymond. I saw that you're helping me on that. Okay. Still do not remember all of the hex colors. And then if you go into the Lorem Ipsum Greek copy and you select, oops, does not say, okay, I'm fine with that change. And then, okay. And if we go back into the title, all right. My whites disappeared here. I think it's because I'm not using the right type. Go ahead and just, and it's kind of crapping out. There we go. And then I'm going to go ahead and do the same with the Greek copy. I think I just made this really bold and it probably just needs to be regular. There. And then we've got Lorem Ipsum copy. Try this again. Select all, Myriad Pro. Make sure it's white. So this has ultimate contrast, and I have specified the hex colors, blue, dark blue, and white. So for each artboard, you will do that. Of course, you want to make it appropriate. This is not appropriate. Red is not calming. Red is energizing. And so that's what you will be defining for that. I would like to open it up for questions. You know, walk you through anything that might just not click with regard to like setting up the artboards or anything like that. So please let me know. I am all ears right now. It's your turn to ask questions. And then at the end, I'll do a quick little review. And if you're good, if you have no questions, just say good and I will move on. Okay. I don't have any questions. So I'm going to, I'll go ahead and review and keep it tagged on to this little demo. This was the demo for the week 3 assessment.